Okay, Parshas Toldos. So tonight, three ideas that I'd like to share with you. The first one is an idea which I saw in the Leiv Shalom from Rosh Shvadron, a very beautiful idea. The Parsha begins with Yaakov Avinu cooking lentils. Why is he cooking lentils? Because Avram Avinu has just passed away. So just to set the scene, a bit of context, Yitzchak lived to 180. Avram Avinu died 5 years short of that. So Rashi brings, because he shouldn't see his grandson Esau go off the path. Yitzchak was 60 years old at the time. We'll put it this way, Avram was 100 years old when he became a father. Yitzchak, the Pasuk says in this week's Parsha, he got married at 40 and then he became a father at 60. Yaakov and Esau were born when Yitzchak was 60. That means at that point Avram was 160. And then if he died at 175, this Parsha, he's cooking lentils as a Sudas Havara for the Shiva of Avram Avinu, the Yaakov and Esau were both 15 years old. Now, he comes back from the field. Chazal tell us he was up to all no good. He was up to the 3 Averis Chamuras, the Gilui Rash, Shvichas Damim, and Avodah Zarah. And he comes home and the Pasuk says, Vayome Esau ben Yaakov, Haliteni no min ha'odom hazeh. He says, give me some, pour it down me. Haliteni is an expression used for feeding camels. You just pour it down them. Haliteni no min ha'odom hazeh. Pour it down me from this red stuff. Ki oyef anoichi, because I'm exhausted. Al kain kor shmei Edom. Therefore they called his name Edom because of the red stew that was cooking. So the Leiv Shalom Shvadron, asked 3 questions. Look at the first question. It's the second box on the page. If you're listening online, j.golker@gmail.com. L'cheira kasha, he says. It's difficult. He was cooking lentils. Chazal say, by the way, lentils are round. One of the reasons we have the round foods, 2 reasons actually. Number 1 is the cycle of life. Sadly that is the cycle of life. And second of all, lentils ein la peh. There's no opening. It's totally round. That sometimes, we have nothing to say. Rachman Islam, you're sitting shiva, there aren't any words. Ein la peh. So he was cooking adoshim. V'hari yodua shekashem mevashlim adoshim naset tzvom yorek. V'lo yedei. Aren't lentils green? Now I know there are different types of lentils. I know a dangerous thing to say, yeah, I know. And there's brown lentils, and there's green lentils, and there's red lentils. So I must admit, this is not, of the 3 questions, this is not the strongest, right? But he seems to suggest that lentils should be green, and therefore, and the Pasuk calls them red. So maybe they were red lentils, okay. But he says that surely they're green. That's okay, that's question number 1. Now, this is a bigger question. Surely Edom, the color red, refers. What's the issue over here? What's the Pasuk trying to convey? He's trying to convey that Esau he's just come from the field to having done 3 Averis Chamuras, 3 terrible Averis, and he's very desirous. He's full of taiva, and he says, just pour it down me. He's greedy. He's impulsive. Why therefore call him Edom, which is just the color of the lentils? Would it not be more accurate to call it something to do with haliteni? Haliteni means just throw it down me. That is a better way of describing the overall picture. Edom happens to be the color of the lentils. So why not call him therefore the Pasuk says, Al kain kor shmei Edom. Why not call him something to do with haliteni, which is the overriding feature over here? Furthermore, if you see the Rashbam on the Pasuk says in Pasuk Lamed, Min ha'adam hazeh, derech adam hamamah lishal dov mechaver kofeles devarov. When a person is sort of very impulsive, he's in a hurry, he'll repeat his words, like, give it to me. He'll say it quickly, twice. Since he was famished, he was exhausted, he was hungry, what he's saying is, just give it to me quickly. He was desirous to eat this red stuff, this red stew. And because of his greediness, he sold his birthright. For the shame bizoyin karlo kain, and this therefore is a disparaging term that we call him Edom, shebishvil machal Edom, because of a red bowl of chulent, macha b'chirasa, he sold his whole birthright. So again, the question is, wouldn't the name be better sort of connected to the word haliteni rather than Edom? That's the focus. Now the third question is perhaps the strongest question. Look at the Lashon. He says, Vayom Esav el Yaakov, Haliteni no min ha'adam ha'adam hazeh. How do you translate the word no? Please. Is that the Esav you know? I mean, all of a sudden, Esav, who is, we're trying to paint him as some sort of barbaric criminal, is using please and thank yous. What a strange time to get polite. And so it's very bizarre. And moreover, if you look further in the Parsha, and later in the Perek, it says, two parakim later, when it comes to the actual story with the brachas, that Esav is going out to the field to go and find the animal to hunt and to prepare a food for his father, Yaakov, on the instruction of Rivka, which is through Ruach HaKodesh, says, quickly, you got to dress up as Esav, and I'll prepare the food, and quickly get in there and get the brachas. And when Yaakov goes in, he uses an expression which nearly gives the game away. Take a look in the fourth box on the page. Vayome Yaakov el Aviv, this is Yaakov going in, pretending to be Esav. He says, Anoichi Esav b'chirecha. Says Yaakov Avinu, I am Esav your b'chir. Osisi kashe dibarto. I did what you said, I prepared the meal. Kum no shva v'achlo mitzedei ba'avut v'archini nafshecha. He says, Kum no, please get up. Says Vayigash Yaakov Yitzchok Aviv, a few psukim later. Vayomer, and Yitzchok famously says, Hakol kol Yaakov Aydam Yidei Esav. Says Rashi, Kol Yaakov, what does he mean? You sound like Yaakov. Says Rashi, Shemedabe Beloshen Tachanunim, Kum no. You're speaking in a polite way. Aval Esav Beloshen Kanturia Diber, Yokum Avi, he speaks in a rough way. Just get up, Dad. So all of a sudden, to use, haliteni no min ha'adam adam hazeh, it's how strange. He's using being polite in the very scene which is meant to depict him as this sort of barbaric criminal. So Reb Shalom Shadron says a beautiful pshat. When it says in the pasuk, haliteni no does not mean please. No means roar. Where do we have that? With Carbon Pesach in Parshas Boy, for the penultimate box on the page, the pasuk says, describing the Carbon Pesach, Al toichlu mimeno no. Don't eat of it raw. It's got to be roasted properly. No is an expression of raw. Now we can understand what's going on. The pasuk says, Vayom Esav el Yaakov haliteni no min ha'adam. I haven't got no time to wait. Just pour it down me now raw. I'm not waiting for it to be cooked. That's perfect. That's exactly what we're trying to describe. We're trying to describe someone who is ravenous, who is greedy, who is impulsive, who cannot delay his gratification. That's exactly the point. And therefore, Edom, which is the raw state of the lentil, says of Shalom Shvadron, that's the raw state before it turns a different color. It's got the red hue or whatever you want to call it. That is the rawness of it depicts exactly who he is. And I came across a very interesting psychology experiment. There's an experiment that took place in the 60s in Stanford University in America. They gave 4-year-olds, they put them in a room, one by one, and they put in front of them a marshmallow. And they said, 15 minutes. If you hold back from eating that marshmallow for 15 minutes, you get 2 marshmallows. And you see they video some of the kids, and some of these kids, they distract themselves. That one kid just eats it straight away, and and there's some they walk around the room. There's some of them pick it up, they smell it, they put it down again, and they put it out and they smell it. And one kid went 14 and a half minutes, and then he gave in. He just couldn't take it anymore. But some did. 1/3 of the kids, in the experiment, succeeded, and they held off, right? And the other 2/3 didn't. Now, the interesting part is that 15 years later, they did stage 2 of the experiment. And they interviewed the kids. And without exception, all of the kids in that 1/3 who had showed sort of self-discipline when they were 4 years old, each of them were successful in as much as they were happy kids. They had good relationships with their parents, with their families, with their teachers. They had got good grades in school. They were, on a positive trajectory. The other 2/3, again, not all, but the majority of them were not. In some form or shape, had not got good grades, didn't have good relationships, whatever it may be, and got into some sort of trouble. You see from here that one of the keys to success is self-discipline and the ability to delay gratification. And if a 4-year-old can demonstrate that, then it's a sign that he's onto success in life. The key to successful life is really the ability to show some self-control and the ability to delay gratification. And that really is the opposite of Esau. That's really why we call him Edom, because Edom describes that person who's impulsive, who can't wait, who hasn't got the self-discipline, and therefore the term Edom, the rawness of the lentils, depicts this very well. Okay, let's press on. The next piece, paragraph 2, very, very interesting observation. Yaakov and Esav are born. This goes to the beginning of the Parsha. After, when Yaakov is born, he comes out, and he's sort of holding on to the heel of Esav. Yaakov, and they call his name Yaakov. Okay, now turn over the page, top of the next page. This is when Esav is born. Kulei kader seo is very hairy. Vayikru shmoi Esav. Now, interesting. When it comes to Yaakov, it says Vayikro shmoi Esav. Sorry, Vayikro shmoi Yaakov in the singular. And when it comes to Esav, it's Vayikru shmoi Esav. And I must be honest, I've never really noticed it before. Rashi deals with it, but I never realized the contrast. On the pasuk with Yaakov, who's Vayikra? Who calls him Esav? Sorry, Yaakov. Yeah, so Vayikra, but it's the singular. So who calls him Yaakov? Says Rashi, Vayikra shma Yaakov, either HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he calls him by the name of Yaakov, or Dovache Oviv Korola Yaakov, i.e., Al Shem Achizas Yaakov. It was Yitzchak who actually called him Yaakov. So the Vayikra is either referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu or to Yitzchak. Now, so who's Vayikru? When it comes to Esav, who is they? Says Rashi, Hakol Korola Kain. Everyone called him that. So I came across a fabulous interpretation of L'Sitcha Elyon. It's a lovely sefer I've got, and he quotes many of the Baalei Musa, and this one is in the name of Rav Don Segal. Rav Don Segal is one of the great mashgichim of our times. But before we get there, let me just a bit of background. We mentioned a few weeks ago in the Shiur about names, that the name of a person defines the very essence of the person. Yeah, the Shema Grama, the Gemara says in Brachos, that the name the person has almost causes who you are. It's a definition of your very essence. The word neshama, who you really are, the middle letters of the word neshama is shame. Now, to highlight it, someone mentioned it, but we didn't mention it at the time a few weeks ago, but I mentioned it now because I think it's fascinating. Take a look at the Rabbeinu Bachai, which brings this point out. The Pasuk says, this is back in Bereshis, Adam Arishon, he gives names to all the animals. Says Rabbeinu Bachai, this is the second box on page 2, whatever name that Adam called the animals, that's their name. So he called it a pill, an aryeh, a chamar, that is the name. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the fun of kol behemoths v'chayos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu passed all the animals in front of Adam Arishon, v'kara lohen shemus, and he called them their names. V'omar lezen lo nikrosa aryeh, this one I'm going to call a lion, an aryeh, v'lezen lo nikrosa chamar, v'lezeh sus, v'chein lechol davar v'davar. Now, this demonstrated the tremendous chachma of Adam Rishon. He was the Yitzir Kappa of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Pseida. Venerally, yeah, look at this. Biur HaMedrash. Ki ha'adam hevin b'chachmasai v'sichlei teva kol behema. Adam Rishon was able to ascertain the very essence of each animal. V'kar l'kol achas v'achas shem me'ein ha'teva v'hamida shehikivo. He was able to get to the very essence of that animal, and therefore the name that he came up with, defines the animal exactly. For example, right? Let's go to what is an aryeh? The aryeh is the lion, is the king of the jungle. He recognized Gibor Gadol or Melech Shebachayas is the king of all the animals. Until the Chazal depicted Kaviyach HaKadosh Baruch Hu Achrei Hashem Yechul Ka'aryeh Yishog, like a roaring lion. It's a moshel. It's used for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'hel Hashem Aryeh b'pnei she'oisius Aryeh ruchnis. the name, the letters, Aleph, Yud, Hey, Ruchnias letters, they're spiritual letters. V'chein oisis Hashem yisparach shemoi. V'chein etzem Hashem shel Ari mevayin yono. And therefore it depicts this king of the jungle, this sort of majestic type of animal. That's the Aryeh. What about a chamar? So it says, V'chein b'shem ha-chamar. Hike b'chochmosa shehu pesi v'sichel. He's a foolish animal. Mikol ha-behemoths, of all the animals, it's the most foolish. V'nimshach acha taivus, and it just goes after its own desires. V'alkein korshma chamar miloshen chomer. Chomer means just blob, physical mass. Because that's what a chamar is. Its job is to carry, and a measure of wheat and barley is called a chomer so'irim, a measure of barley. And therefore, the chamar is connected to its sort of function in life to carry and to schlep. Chomer, and it's a chomer so'irim, and it's chomer, it's just blob, it's physical mass, etc. So you see that was the chokhmah. The name defines the person. Now, that being the case, take a look at the next paragraph. The Sitcha Elyon. This is in the name of Don Segal. L'cheinu meres ha-Torah, vayikru shmo Esav. With that in mind, I now understand. Because they called his name Esav, hakol koru l'kein. Everyone who knew him, met him, they all called him Esav. Ki lahagdir es ha'odom ha'poshet yochenim kulam. When you're trying to characterize a simple person, you don't need a lot of chokhmah for that. Anybody can do it. Because the external and the internals are exactly the same. It's not, you don't need a lot of depth to depict a very base individual who's not got much depth, a very sort of superficial person. Esav is oichel v'sheise ne'enem olam hazeh. He's eating and drinking, he's just enjoying the pleasures of this world. There's not much more to him. So therefore, everyone can call him Esav, everyone can call him Edom, because his nature, his characteristics are quite simple to perceive. But to really understand who is Yaakov Avinu, Hagadol v'Hatzadik, the great and the holy tzaddik, shehelem boi rav al hanigle, that there's more hidden than there is revealed. It's very hard to capture that person. Therefore, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu, only they are able to define what the name is. So therefore, when it comes to Esav, it's Vayikru, it's quite easy to label this fellow. Masha'en ken Yaakov, it's Vayikra, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu or Yitzchak who can capture him. And the truth is, there's a lot of depth here. I remember Hartman often says that with tzaddikim, the more you get to know them, the greater they are. Because so much is hidden. And sometimes you see great people, you look at their talmidim, they're all quite different. Because they're all just different manifestations of a very multifaceted individual. But when you get a simple person, especially a wicked person like Esav, who's very superficial, who's just engaged in Olam Hazeh, so then Vayikru, they can all call him that, easy to label. But a tzaddik like Esav, where there's so much which is hidden, and you can't penetrate the depths of his personality, is Dafka Vayikra. It's a very interesting insight to Rav Don Segal. Okay, let's finish off with a very nice pshat I saw in the name of Reb Chaim Kanievsky. So the pasuk says that Esav goes out and he prepares this stew, this dish, and he brings, the pasuk says, Vayas gamhu matamim vayovin la'aviv. He also brings this dish and he brings it into his father, Vayomer la'aviv yokum avi, which we quoted before, get up that. And then you can eat from my food and you can bless me. Now, says Reb Chaim Kanievsky, people came to him and asked him, there is this shmua, this concept, that if children are mechabed their parents, they perform kibbud avim properly, there'll be a payback to them. That they will merit to have children who honor them. Are you familiar with this? Have you heard such a concept? Yeah, that if people honor their parents, then somehow it will come back to them. They asked him, is there any makor for it? Is there any source? And he says, yeah, this pasuk. There is a source, it is true, I have heard this, and the source is this pasuk. Now you and I can read this pasuk 100 times. What? Where do you see it in this pasuk? So let's take a look at this bottom box. The only Reb Chaim Kanievsky can do this. Nog leimar she'odam shemechabed es hayrav. it's said that a person who honors his parents, bonov yechabdu oisoi, his own children will be mechabet him. Kolema, ze inyan shepoyel l'shnei hakivunim. It works both ways. What you do to your parents, it will come back to you. Shalu es harav Kanievsky zatzal, ha'im ze kosuv oiramuz b'Torah. Is this alluded to anywhere in the Torah? For who hifna isom, the pasuk kanal, he referred them to the above pasuk, she'es hamilim vayove la'ovev. We know that Esav is the sort of the paragon of kibbud av v'em. And therefore it says the words vayove la'ovev nitzen likra miyamin l'smal v'gam l'mismal yamin. These words I've highlighted in the box above, vayove la'ovev, you can read it backwards, forwards, the same way. Amazing. Yeah, you see it? Koloima shove b'shnei hakivunim. Yizichre baruch. Remarkable. So he says, the allusion to it is in this pasuk, because Esav, who is the paragon of kibbud av v'em, he was the one who brought food matamim to his father. Vayove la'oviv reads the same both ways, backwards and forwards. So that's an allusion to this concept that a person who honors their parents, then their children will also honor them. Okay, good. Baruch Hashem, this week we finished the Parsha Shiur. So 3 ideas. I don't know if I don't look. He himself married Avodah Zarah, and so I don't know if it was such a value for him. So there we have 3 ideas. The first idea, there's 3 questions from Shon Shadron. Why call him red? Lentils are green. Okay, surely Edom refers to his strong desires. Wouldn't the name connected to Haliteni be more appropriate? And then why does he come polite? The Torah says no is not polite. No means raw, and it very much captures who he is: impulsive, not being able to wait, as per the marshmallow experiment. And then what's in a name? Why is it when it comes to Yaakov, Vayikra, and with Esau is Vayikru? So as we discussed, because when you capture the essence of a person, with a simple, superficial person like Esau, anyone can do it. But a more sophisticated, deeper, hidden tzaddik like Yaakov, so then it needs HaKadosh Baruch Hu or Yitzchak through HaKadosh to be able to name him, which captures his essence. And then this last idea of Chaim Kanievsky, this idea that Vayove la'oviv, it sort of can read both ways to convey the idea when a person honors his parents, they in turn will be honored by their own children. Okay.
It's interesting that we use Esav as a and in the same possible there's a very that says get up there, so it's not very
Yeah. It's the physical. That is Esav. It's a whole share.